Hello again.
Here we are again.
My name is Gidon Ariel of Root Source, and I have the tremendous enjoyment and honor of speaking with Dr. Richard Booker. And this is our third time speaking together, and we're just moving forward like bonkers or whatever the word is. And in our last segment, we started speaking about the topic of cultural appropriation of Christians, of Jewish concepts, ritual items, and things like that. And I spoke a little bit about that. And Dr. Booker asked to speak about it as well. So, Dr. Booker, what have you on your mind?
Well, first of all, I hope people will tune into the last program, and I appreciate your openness and your heartwarming reception of what we were talking about. And I understand completely, because we have such a unfortunate history of Jewish-Christian non-relationships, you might say. And if you don't talk to people, how are you going to learn anything about them? You know,
from a Jewish perspective, we would only pray if we could only just have a non-relationship.
I understand. Yes, I understand. Well, we have a dear rabbi friend in Houston that we love dearly, who's always open and kind to us. And he would sometimes give me the Jewish perspective, and he would say to me, Richard, we have a saying among the Jewish people.
Yes.
Stop hitting me, stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Why did you stop hitting me?
Something like that, right?
Yes. Why did you stop hitting me? So we're in the transition in the Jewish Christian world from stop hitting me to why did you stop hitting me? And one of the main reasons why is because a remnant, I like that word remnant, it's a good Bible word, a remnant, which would be millions, small m, but millions of Christians have rediscovered the Jewishness of Yeshua Jesus.
Yes.
And the New Testament. It's all written by Jews. It's a Jewish book.
They discussed that phenomenon. I remember before I think it was even before. No, I don't know that it was made out before I made Aliyah, but I made Aliyah in 1978. But at some point, I think Time magazine, Life magazine, you remember what a magazine was? That was before blogs. So there was, I think it was Time magazine. They said the 10 most important ideas of the 21st century, 20th century, whatever, something like that. One of those ideas, one of the 10 most important, according to Time magazine, was the Jewishness of Jesus.
Wow, I didn't remember. I was just a babe then. I don't remember that. So no, really, it is. It's one of the most important, we would call it, moves of God. That's how we would say it in the world today, because this is the heritage, the true heritage of Christianity. And when Christians discover or rediscover that, they have this unconditional love for the Jewish people and for Israel. So there is a phrase that most people know, that imitation is the highest form, or flattery is the highest form. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Imitation is the highest form of flattery.
Yeah.
So if you're discovering things in the Bible, in the Hebrew part of the Bible, we would say the First Testament part of the Bible, that God put there, even though maybe the modern way of expressing it is not necessarily in the Bible, it might be something you can do and still honor your Christian faith and show love and respect for the Jewish people. This is our heart motive. So it's not to steal Jewish things, it's to come alongside and show support. So would you rather have us loving a Jewish Messiah that we see it in that way, or following Constantine and his sword? Which one would you rather have? That's the question. That's the bottom line question here. And so following Constantine and his sword, how did that work out for the Jewish people? Didn't work out well at all. So you have millions of Christians who are not culturally appropriating for wrong reasons, but trying to come alongside and show love and respect and support while remaining true to our own faith and beliefs.
So you say millions, right?
Yes.
So I'm a numbers guy.
Small m millions.
What's a big M millions?
I don't know. A remnant. It's called a remnant in the Bible, a remnant. The Talmudim, the true Talmudim followers of Yeshua Jesus. Can I put it this way, Gidon? It is a sovereign move of the Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth, who is awakening you and I to discover one another and love one another and leave our differences for him to work out.
Can I hire you to be the spokesman for Root Source? That's exactly what our slogan is.
I think I've been your spokesman for a long time. We just didn't know it. So God has his plans, his purposes, his times in the Bible, his times to favor Zion, his times of the Gentiles, his times for this, his times for that. But he's outside of all of that. He declares the end from the beginning. His counsel shall stand and none shall stay his hand. And he's declared that this is what we would call a prophetic season.
Yes.
For Jews and Christians to discover one another. In Leviticus 19, unconditional love your neighbor and the stranger as yourself, and be honest with your own beliefs and faiths without compromising them, but agree in love to walk together.
So so this is this is not the first time we're speaking, but it's one of the first times we're speaking. And you could have told me that 20 years ago, and maybe it wasn't you, maybe it was God himself who told me that. And I said, okay, this sounds right to me. And so that's what I've been doing.
Gidon, remember I just said it's a sovereign work of God. So there are Christian people all over the world with no human leader telling them to do a certain thing, but the Almighty himself by his Spirit, his Ruach, the Holy Spirit, as we Christians like to say, has touched their hearts. Heaven has come down to earth and touched their hearts and awakened them to what we're talking about, and in the best way they know how.
Yes.
Because there's no human leader to kind of guide and help. A few of us have been around a long time and tried to help and guide. But in their own way, finding their way back to you. And
finding their way back to the Jewish people.
To the Jewish people, the Jewish Messiah, as we would say, the Jewish Lord, yes. Yeshua, Jesus. And so I was teaching the other day at a Christian church about some of the stories in the Bible. Yeah. And I kept saying, life is messy. Life is messy. When God works with humans, it can be messy. And so moving from why are you hitting me to why did you stop hitting me can be messy. But you try to find people who you share the same heart with.
Yes.
And you have unconditional love. You know that you're not perfect yourself. You have your own things that probably aren't exactly right. So why should you criticize and judge other people because they don't do something exactly like you do it?
Okay, I'm signed up on that too. Dr. Booker, I think we should start writing down the the aphorisms that we can agree upon, or maybe you can say, what, we don't have to write them down. They're all written there in the Bible.
They're all written in the book, and I have summarized them in various places, things we have in common. And we have so many things in common. We could spend our whole lives around those issues and never learn to hate each other around the things that we have different.
You're just batting them out of the park today. That's the way I've been saying all for decades.
Have you been reading my books?
I'm wondering if I have to, if I already agree with them so much.
We're reading the same book, the Holy Book of God. And for a Christian standpoint, I always try to say that the Newer Testament is not teaching anything new that was not in the First Testament. It's just giving for non-Christian people, non-Jewish people maybe, or it depends on how you look at issues, it's giving a more clearer understanding of how to live out the first part of the book through a personal relationship with Yeshua. So all these 1,050 commandments in the New Testament, they're not suggestions either. They're commandments. And somehow along the way, when Constantine separated true Christianity from its Hebraic Jewish roots, and the reaction on the Jewish side to that, which is understandable, we went our separate ways. And God is not happy with that. He allows humans to do things, but in the end, he will see that we find each other again and together seek him with our whole hearts. That's my heart's desire.
So here we are. Maybe this is an opportunity for you to ask me some questions, or for me to introduce myself to your audience, who hopefully will be coming to watch these videos as well.
Well, I would like to know, how is it that you came to these, I'll say, revelations of similar thinking of what we've been talking about? How did that happen in your life?
That's not the more general question of how did you get around, like, why did you, what are you doing here? Like,
why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me and not some Jewish person in Shiloh or somewhere?
Okay, so all right. So we have about 9 minutes. I'll try to tell the short story and maybe get up to it. I've been telling the story hundreds of times. I was born in New York, a Jew in New York, and New York, of course, is the biggest Jewish state besides Israel. When I was born, it was the biggest Jewish state before Israel. Today, Israel is the biggest state, and New York is the second biggest state. But I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood, an Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. I was not very Jewish. I was not very Orthodox, my family. But I went to a Jewish day school, and then I went to public school. While I was in public school, I decided that I wanted to be a more Jewish-focused Jew. It was all.
Do you know what made you decide that?
Of what made me decide what?
You wanted to be more observant.
That was because when I was growing up in a non-observant family and in a non-observant circle of friends, really, we were all part of an Orthodox Jewish synagogue and Orthodox Jewish day school. Those were the main social hubs that we participated in. Just like so many Christians go to church, we were going to these synagogues, and it wasn't requiring much of us. We could drive to synagogue on Saturday, even though that was a no-no. But nobody would say anything about it because most of the people would be doing that. But when my parents, and the same thing for elementary school, in the morning we would put on our kippot, and in the afternoon we would take them off. That was it. And
You had your ham sandwiches in the afternoon.
That's exactly what I was about to say. And I don't remember eating ham sandwiches, but on the way home from school, if I passed by a White Castle, then I would say, hey, look at this, a 10-cent hamburger. I'm buying it. But in 5th grade, my parents took me out of that day school. And I'm guessing it was because of financial reasons. And I felt, you don't know what you got until it's gone. And even though there were still plenty of Jews in the public school that I was going to, after all, it was Queens. But I said, no, there's something more to my Jewish identity than just being a Jew. Three letters isn't enough for an identity.
I like that. Very good.
So I was all of 10 or 11 years old, but I started searching out as much as a 10 or 11-year-old kid could search. And I went back to that day school and I started paying more attention. And I was very lucky that at that year, in that 6th grade, when I went back to that Jewish day school, a Jewish Zionist youth, Orthodox Jewish Zionist youth movement called Bnei Akiva started making inroads and came to the school and started recruiting anybody want to come to our summer camp or our boys club or what, our youth movement club or whatever it was. And I jumped at the chance and it was great. And I loved it. Because there I learned about the values. Again, they were presented in a way that a 10-year-old could absorb them.
Our stories are very similar.
The values were love of the God of Israel, love of the people of Israel, love of the Torah of Israel, love of the land of Israel, and love of the state of Israel. And remember, this was in 1975.
See, mine counter was 1974.
So maybe it was 1974. I don't remember.
Yours was 75. Might have been 74.
Might have been 74. I don't remember offhand. Ever since I got married, I leave the exact dates to my wife. But that was it. It was like just I was the right place at the right time. And so for 3 years, I was just soaking this all up. I went to summer camp, 2 months. If my parents would come up on Visitors Day, I would say, okay, Ma, Dad, you go there. There's a place for you guys, a coffee shop you can hang out. I'm too busy being with my friends or something like that. And my counselors, who were all of maybe 4 or 5 years older than me, they would teach me things that my heart just leapt out at.
Were there words burning in your heart?
I think so.
Now
again, I was 12 years old, whatever. I didn't think it, and frankly, words burning in my heart, that's a phrase that Jews don't use too much. But
I understand.
But by the time I was in 9th grade, I went to a Jewish high school in New York, but it wasn't so good. And my parents and I decided that we would sit down and decide what I would do for 10th grade. And my parents surprised me when they said, would you like or would you consider going to Israel for high school?
Oh my goodness.
I'd never been, but I jumped at the chance. I said, of course. Because
wow.
As far as I was concerned, I was already living in my dreams in Israel. And now you're giving me a chance to go there.
Our stories are very similar. I don't know if you see that or not.
So I went to Israel. I loved it. I felt like I was in that Bnei Akiva summer camp as soon as I landed. And frankly, I've been here for 45 years and I still feel that way. Maybe even more so. And I went and I studied the Torah and I studied the Hebrew language and I traveled the land and I met my friends. It was just living those loves that I was introduced to 3 years earlier. The love of the God of Israel, the love of the land of Israel, the love of people of Israel, the love of the Torah of Israel, the love of the state of Israel. And my whole life was that, and it is until this day. At some point when I was in the army, after I finished high school, I went to the military. I was on a break, and I was walking through the streets of Jerusalem, and I saw a sign on a door of an apartment. And I wanted to cross the street to read that sign because I have a hobby. It's reading the signs in Jerusalem. You know, you can get a bachelor's degree in Jewish history just by reading the street signs in Jerusalem.
That's very true.
This was not a street sign. It was a sign on an apartment. It was an office. Guess what that office was? It was the ICEJ.
Oh, no, really?
This was probably in the early 80s. They were not in the big building that they later moved into. It was on Brenner Street. I bet you've heard of Brenner Street.
Of course.
And so I said, what is it? ICEJ, International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem? Christian Embassy, Jerusalem? Wait a second. Embassy means friendship. Jerusalem means Israel and Jews. Christians, we know what that means. So
right.
Christians, friends, Jews, it does not compute. It didn't compute in my mind.
Why did you stop hitting me?
Exactly. So the door was a little open. I walked inside. There were some brochures. I started picking up the brochures. The receptionist said, "Can I help you?" I said, No, just browsing. And I saw these brochures, and these were Christians who loved the Jewish people, who loved the state of Israel.
Do you know what year that was?
No, but I can guess.
Early 80s.
Early 80s. And that was a seed in my heart.
I see.
Exactly when it was, I don't know. But soon thereafter, I don't know how soon thereafter, at some point, I said, wow, here's my opportunity to engage with Christians like this. And I went to that ICJ again, and I picked up another brochure. And then I went to another organization, Bridges for Peace. And then I found Christians United for Israel and Christians for Israel, Christians Friends from Israel.
All friends of ours for many years.
Of course, I kept on meeting sincere, beautiful, God-loving people. And when I was in the kindergarten, I don't remember much what I learned there, but one of the things that I learned there, if somebody wants to be your friend, then be their friend. And that's
good advice. Good advice. There's not very many friends in the world. If you find a real one, hold on to them.
So I think that your question was, Gidon, why are you such a, how did you start speaking with Christians? And that's the way it happened. Little by little, I started speaking. Little by little, I just went, let's just be friends. And that was enough for many of my Christian friends. And now I have hundreds, if not thousands.
Maybe one day millions.
Our time is up for this message, for this time. It's a little shorter, but I have another meeting coming up. So we will meet again with God's help next week, and we'll record maybe 3 more lessons. We're really pushing them out of the park here.
It's been a joy to be with you, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
You too, sir. Have a great day, and my regards to the love of your life, Peggy.
Thank you. I'll give that to her. Shalom.